All right. Well, first of all, I love that Michael led us through the deep traditional spiritual meaning, and then we did Father Abraham. Fantastic. Secondly, I don't think I want to follow that, but we'll give it a try. I tell you what, once again, instead of my words, let's go to the scriptures. This morning we are going to be in Genesis chapter 12. If you're using the Pew Bible that is in front of you, it's page 17. If you are one of our cool 3rd, 4th, 5th graders who have the deep blue Bible, it's on page 14. Genesis chapter 12, first 9 verses. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abraham left, as the Lord had told him. And Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of Canaan. And they arrived there. Abraham traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So this summer, we are beginning a new series entitled To Boldly Go. Yes, it is a reference to Star Trek. No, it wasn't my idea. It was actually Pastor Beth's. I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but your children's director and your lead pastor are both nerds. So we are going to be thinking about To Boldly Go this morning. And of course, that quote continues on, "To boldly go where no one has gone before." In our scripture this morning, we see Abraham set out on an actual physical trek that mirrors his motion, his journey of faith. But this journey of faith that is in the physical is not where Abraham's where the real story is. It's not so much his destination as it is who Abraham is traveling with. Now, before I get too far down the road, you may have noticed that Abram was referred to in the scriptures, and I've been saying Abraham. The reason for that is Abraham's name is Abram. God will later change it to Abraham, but I like to keep things simple, so I'm just going to call him Abraham, start to finish, same guy in Genesis 12. So Genesis 12 kind of has these two really big ideas. God says that he will bless Abraham. And so we talk about blessings in Genesis 12. And Abraham sets out into the unknown. Abraham has faith. And we're going to look at faith in a larger context, but we really don't have time to unpack all of what it means to be blessed by God and all of what it means to have faith in God in our time this morning. So we're going to narrow that in and look at the blessings given to Abraham and the faith that Abraham shows in that. So in Genesis 12, God makes some promises. He promises that Abraham will have a great name, that he will be a great, big, huge family, a whole nation, and that that nation will be given a land. But those blessings are promised not just to Abraham, but they're promised to all the peoples of the world. The end of verse 3 says, "And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abraham set out not knowing what was going to be next. But we get to cheat just a little bit because we have the advantage of knowing that rest of that story. We know that Abraham's son is Isaac and his son is Jacob and Joseph and on and on and on. And he becomes this incredible nation, the ancient nation of Israel. We know that eventually they will live in the land of Canaan, and it will be theirs. But these are just the stage. These are just the time and the place where God is going to step out of heaven and take on humanity. The land promised to Abraham would become the ancient nation of Israel, but it would also be the nation that God visited. And God had called Israel to be a city on a hill, to be lifted up as the example. But we know that that example isn't quite perfectly achieved because people are put in charge. But it would be in that nation that Jesus would walk. It would be among those people that Jesus would come and be lifted up. It would be there that Jesus will not only come and teach us how to live and how to love, it would be Jesus' death on the cross, the resurrection from the grave, that would restore our relationship with God. It's the foundation of our hope. And even though nobody here, I believe, is old enough to have seen Jesus with their own eyes. A couple people think maybe they are. All right, fantastic. Our hope is in Jesus nonetheless. Our faith rests on the hope given to us through the sacrifice of Jesus. And it is in this hope, it is by this faith that we enter into relationship with God and are given the freedom and the power to love and to live as Jesus did. And it's not just that we know the end of the story and we get to cheat a little bit and go, oh, the blessings for all nations is about Jesus, and we just ignore Abraham. Because even in this text, what we see is those blessings listed in Genesis 12 are flowing out of the character of God. And next week, Abraham and God will talk about God's character and what it means now that Abraham has put his faith in God, what that next step is. It's impressive that Abraham sets out, that he boldly goes. But again, his real adventure is not in his destination, but rather in the one who he travels with. Abraham's true step of faith is not a step toward an unknown land. Rather, Abraham's true step of faith is in his assurance that God can and will fulfill the promises that have been made. Abraham on his journey will stop 2 times to build an altar. 2 times Abraham will stop and give worship to God. Having a great name is fantastic, and having land given to you is wonderful. I grew up in California, so owning land is something I've never imagined would happen to me. I was born way too late to buy a home at an affordable rate. Now that I'm in Gainesville, maybe. It's great to have a name. It's great to have a land. But Abraham had all of that stuff. He was wealthy. He had accumulated stuff and acquired people. Abraham sets out on this journey because he knows who God is. He knows that God can and will fulfill those promises. So the blessings are not just about the stuff, at least for Abraham. For Abraham, it's about returning to that relationship that, again, through Abraham's family, through the land that they would possess, God comes into the story as a human being, dies and rises again so that we can have relationship with God. So how is it that Abraham could have this faith? Hebrews chapter 11 is the chapter you go to if you want to define faith. At least it's where I go. The NIV version reads this way. Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. The King James Version translates that verse that faith is the substance of the things that we hope for. It's the evidence of what we do not see. The English Standard Version will say that faith is our assurance of what we hope for, the conviction of what we do not see. Now, normally I'm not going to dig this deep into a verse and do a word study and get into the Greek and do all of that. But I do think it's worth our time this morning. I do think that if we look at just one of the words from the Greek, we start to understand faith a little bit better. And what's really cool is it's a Greek word who we still use those pieces in English. The author of Hebrews, when it was first written down, says that faith is the hypostasis of the things that we hope for. Stasis, of course, it's the middle. It's the standard, right? It's when everything is equal, kind of the normal flow of everything. Stasis is the foundation. And hypo, of course, is under. So we can say that faith is the thing that goes under hope, right? Hope is about the future. You can't hope for a thing you don't have. Once you have it, you no longer hope. Hope is always this thing that we can't quite grab onto. That's what makes it so great. That's what defines what it is. It's hope in the future. Hope is the what, and faith is the how. Faith is the hypostasis. It goes under hope, and it shores it up. It gives us confidence and assurance that this thing that we can't see has value to it. We can't see Jesus any longer because he's returned to heaven, but we have faith, just like Abraham had faith, that he is real and that he wants relationship with us. Now, I bring all this up and I talk about the Greek not to show off that I can look online and find Greek words. It certainly didn't come from my schooling, although they tried. I bring it up because the King James Version has my favorite translation, and that's usually not the case. The King James Version says that faith is the substance of what we hope for. It's the evidence of the things that we don't see. And I often don't think about substance, and I certainly don't think of evidence as words relating to faith. I think of those as science words. And I think that science and faith, while different things for different purposes, can work in the same way. Science says I'm going to come to a conclusion after I've collected all my data. And that data needs to be something I can observe. I have to see it, I have to smell it, I have to touch it, I have to taste it. But faith makes no such claim. Rather, faith says, I believe in the things that I cannot see. Faith says that even though it's something that I only hope for, I am assured of it because I know what has happened in the past. So if we look then at Abraham's faith, we can stay in Hebrews 11 and go down just a couple verses. Verse 8 says this: by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. 11 months ago to the day, I guess 10 months and 3 weeks, it took me a week to get here. I left California and drove to Florida, and that for me was quite a bit of leap of faith. And I knew where I was going. I had GPS and a map, and I'd been here. Abraham steps out. My apologies to John. Abraham steps out, not trying to get that great name, not trying to get that great land, but rather putting his faith in the character of God. Abraham obeyed and went. And even though he did not know where he was going, Abraham boldly went, even when he could not see what was next. And we've said this again and again, but Abraham was able to carry out his faith into the unknown because he was able to place his faith in the known. He began his trek because he placed his faith in the character of God. Now, I believe this is a congregation that places their faith in God. I believe that this congregation, like Abraham, isn't looking for the stuff, isn't looking for the blessing. Rather, they're looking to figure out how can we bless others. Like Abraham, who would have a great name and a great land that would lead to everyone meeting God as a human being. Abraham knowing that he had stuff and he had to follow God and be a blessing to others. I believe that we as a congregation often do the same thing. As I just stated, I've been here for almost a year, and when I came last May, I came to visit you all to see if the director of Children, Youth, and Family Ministries was something that God was going to have for me in this place. So I came to visit, and I came to meet a lot of you, but I really came to figure out what was the heart of this church. What are the things that they would go out and do? How did they bless others? And did it fit with where God had me? This church has a ton of ministries. We do a lot inside this building. We do a lot outside this building in the community. But there were a few ministries when I came for that first visit that really struck me and really showed me who we were as a church. I came and visited, and I got to talk with Beth a little bit and meet a couple people and go see Gainesville and talk with Beth some more. And during that time, during that week that I was here, really during that weekend, I noticed that just outside these doors, on any given day, if you drive by, you're going to find the community that's experiencing homelessness, it's experiencing hunger. They're going to use our benches, they're going to use our shade, and they're welcome here. But all I knew is that they were there. And just as I was about to ask Pastor Beth, hey, what do you guys do for the homeless community? She's like, oh, and by the way, I need to tell you about. And she told me about the community outreach ministry and our partner Helping Hands. And she told me about Family Promise. Before I could even ask the question of what you guys do, Beth was excited to tell me, this is what we do outside of our walls. Another ministry that I got to learn a lot about, because if I took the position, and I did, obviously, I got to be in charge of Metcalf, which is this elementary school just down the road. And I get to be the person who sees how those of you who go in when the school year was in and went for an hour or two and hung out with students and teachers, I get to see that impact. And for those of you that have been praying for them and have given financially and helped them go on a DC trip, I get to see all of that. They get to thank me, and that's like the best job in the world, is to come and go, hey, church, I need some help. And you guys are like, yes, we will help because we're awesome. And then I go and go, here's awesomeness. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. And like, I get all of the thanks for just like being the person that goes back and forth. It's a pretty good deal. But again, that doesn't happen inside of these doors at all. That all has to go out into the community. I do want to just mention real quickly Fumpers. Fumpers is our First United Methodist Preschool. It's really funny, right? Fumpers, F-U-M-P. They're awesome. They're a place where families come and their kids are safe and they're educated and they're loved on. And that organization, that preschool works so hard to make sure that people that don't have those resources get scholarship money and that those people get money from the government so that those kids who might not get to come in get to be safe and loved and educated. So all that to say, we're a church that looks out. We're a church that looks beyond our doors. I believe we are a church who's ready to boldly go. I believe we're a church that is ready to start some new things. If you read in your bulletin, Pastor Beth's kind of mission statement, her captain's log, if you will, is that this book of Genesis, this book of beginnings, this book of things that are new, inspires all of us to be thinking about how we can be following God in what is new. So here's the charge for the week. Here's the homework. Here's I just sat through 20 minutes of Greek, but what do I need to do this week? Here's where it is. Pray. Pray about where you might fit into the work and the ministries that are already present here. And again, there's a million places to connect. Pray about what new life and new ministry you might be a part of here at First United. Pray and listen to what new life you might bring into this place being not just our church, but our community. And then pray for who? Pray for who it might be that you can minister. Pray for who it might be that needs to see Jesus in you. Because our hope and our faith is built on what is unseen. But even in that, hope stepped out of heaven and became physical, became tangible, stepped out of heaven and walked the land. God put on humanity and showed us how to live and how to love. I pray that we might be that for others. Amen.